gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior.
Praying worships Him. Jesus said, if you go in your closet and pray, surely you will not lack your reward. There's going to be a reward for that. Seeing the Word displayed in the ordinances of baptism and the Lord's Supper, we are not free to change those things. We can't do away with the Lord's Supper. We can't do away with baptism. We can't change them into any things we want. We can't add another thing to that. God has determined how He is to be worshiped and what is acceptable worship. And the main way now in the New Testament that it very clearly teaches is with our life, with our body. Romans 12, verse 1, therefore, I urge you, brother, by the mercy of God, present your bodies as a living sacrifice to God, acceptable to Him. This is your spiritual service of worship. And what does it look like to present our bodies to God? Verse 2, do not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Putting off the old self, putting on the new. That's daily worship of God. We worship God with our lives, with our bodies. Jesus said that there's a new place of worship. Talking to the woman at the well, neither at this mountain nor in Jerusalem will they worship the Father, but those who worship Him will worship in spirit and in truth. The body and the heart of the believer is the new place of worship. God determines what acceptable worship is. He's told us we are not free to change it. A holy people worship God in an acceptable way. You want to be holy? Worship Him the way He says. Number 5, see what else worship is. Holiness is. Holiness affects how we treat the poor and strangers. Look at verses 9 and 10. Now when you reap the harvest in your land, you shall not reap the very corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, nor shall you glean your vineyards, nor shall you gather the fallen fruits of your vineyards. You shall leave them for the needy and for the stranger. I am the Lord your God. Holy people are intentional about helping the poor. That's what this verse says. These verses say. Holy people are intentional about helping the poor and the stranger, which in this case is the immigrant in the land. Notice, though, that this is not exactly a handout. You know, the people still, the poor, the strangers still had to take the initiative, come to your field, gather what was left, do a little work, take a little initiative. But the point is very clear. God cares about the poor. He cares about those who are foreigners in your land. God sees and God cares. A song that I really like a lot by Marty Goetz. He's a Messianic Jew, a Jew that believes in Jesus. He wrote this song that the lyrics say, talk about the man that God blesses, that when his hands are filled with riches, they're still extended to the poor. This one will bless his generation. And that's really true. That is the way of holiness. Even when our hands are filled with riches, they're still extended to the poor. We are intentional about caring for the poor and the needy. How about you? How do you treat the poor? How do you treat strangers? How do you treat immigrants? This says a lot about holiness. God told His people, be intentional about providing for the poor and for the stranger in your land. Holiness demands that we find ways to care for the poor, for the strangers. It's not the government's job. It's not. It's our job. It's our job. Care for the poor. For me, as I was studying this week, the thought crossed my mind, I've referred people to the Christian Ministry Center before, but I've never been there, and I need to go. This week, I need to go and familiarize myself with what we do as an association of Baptists to care for the poor in our community and see what I can do to help. And for some of you, that may be an application right away as well. Go and see what we can do. That's a good starting point in caring for the poor. Holiness demands that we find ways to care for the poor. Number 6, holiness affects how we do business. Holiness affects how we do business. Look at verses 11 and 12. You shall not steal. nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, so as to profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not oppress your neighbor, nor rob him. I don't know if you're aware of this. I wasn't aware until recently. Never really thought about it. But there are 4 types of laws that must be in place for a free market system to exist. 4 types of laws. Capitalism does not work if these laws are not enforced. The 4 types of laws are these. You shall not steal. Don't steal. You shall not coerce. Don't force anybody. You shall not defraud. Lie. And you shall not break social contracts. Break contracts. You can't do it. And it amazed me as I was studying Leviticus 19 that all 4 of those are there. Look with me. Verse 11, you shall not steal. If there's no protection from stealing, if there's no punishment for stealing, you don't know if you're going to have your property the next day. A free society cannot function. A free market cannot exist. Nor deal falsely. Now, you can see coercion in that. That's a part of dealing falsely, dealing evilly. But definitely beginning of verse 13, you shall not oppress your neighbor is coercion. Don't coerce people. Don't defraud people. See, verse 11 says, do not lie to one another. Verse 12, you shall not swear falsely by my name, so as to profane the name of the Lord your God. This is not breaking a contract. Back in this day, didn't have a lot of legal documents at all. If you were going to make a contract with somebody, you would say, surely as the Lord lives, I will bring your donkey back to you when night comes. That's the kind of a contract you would make with someone. And the Lord's saying here, don't take my name in vain. If you say, I will do it by Yahweh, the God of Israel, then you better do it. If you default on that, if you break your word, and you've called God to witness it, then you are profaning the name of your God. So whenever you make a contract, you better fulfill it. So, I would ask the question, does holiness require us to be capitalist? Does holiness require us to be capitalist? Maybe. But we would all say, certainly, holiness requires us to keep all the rules that make capitalism possible. It requires us to keep all these 4 types of laws. You cannot steal, you cannot coerce, you cannot break a contract, you cannot defraud, lie. Holiness requires us to keep all these rules that make free markets possible. Holiness affects how we do business with one another. There are things that holy people will not do to make a profit. We will not do it to get ahead. We will not steal. We will not lie. We will not break a contract. We will not do these things because holiness constrains us not to. Number 7, what else does holiness look like? Number 7, holiness affects how we treat our employees. Look at the end of verse 13. It says, the wages of a hired man are not to remain with you all night until morning. Now, the reason for this is that a hired man this day lived day to day. He did a day's work, you gave him a day's pay, he went and spent it on a day's bread, basically. There's no bank, there's no saving and loan. The person needed his pay to provide for his family, to provide the basic necessities of life for himself. And if you kept that from him,